Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with green tea mochi ice cream. That's right. While it is a lot of fun to do recipes that you're really confident in and you know are going to come out well, every once in a while I think it's critical to try a recipe you're not good at and you have no idea how to do. And for me, this green tea mochi ice cream is exactly that kind of recipe. But anyway, I've had it at restaurants a few times, been fascinated by its texture and taste, so I decided to give it a whirl, and this was my experience. So we're going to get started by prepping the ice cream. And to do that, I'm going to use this ice cream ball mold, which looks just like an egg carton. In fact, if you don't have an ice cream ball mold, you could just go ahead and use an old egg carton. It will work perfectly. And that's been lined with plastic wrap. And I'm going to go ahead and scoop in some vanilla ice cream. And the reason for this step is we need to freeze these ice cream balls really firm and solid so that we can wrap them with our green tea mochi later and they won't melt while we're doing it. So we're going to scoop that ice cream out, we're going to wrap that up, and we're going to pop it in the freezer for a couple hours until very, very firm, okay? And once that's been done, we can move on to the mochi dough. Is it called a dough? I don't even know if it's called a dough. But we're moving on to the mochi. And the main ingredient for that is something called glutinous rice. Or I've seen it called sweet rice flour. And by the way, if you are living a glutinous-free lifestyle, don't worry, there's no gluten in glutinous rice. So we're going to toss some of that in a bowl. And to that, I'm going to add a tiny pinch of salt. I'm not sure if that's traditional, but it just felt right for me. And then we're going to pour in some water and give that a stir. And once that's all stirred together, we're going to add some sugar. Now, like I said at the beginning, I have absolutely no idea what I'm doing here. I only glanced at a couple recipes and just decided to wing it. But one thing I saw said to put the sugar in after you mix this together. And why? I don't know. I'm hoping some of you can tell me. But anyway, I mixed that up, and then I added some sugar. I continued mixing until it was completely smooth. And probably a whisk would have worked better here, but I went wooden spoon. It seemed a little more Japanese to me. And I guess that would be your basic mochi mixture. But since I want to do a green tea mochi, I'm going to add a little spoon of green tea powder. And we'll stir that in and take a real good look at that color, because this is as beautiful as it gets. That color kind of faded into more of a drab green, as you'll see. But anyway, we're going to mix that in. And at that point, we are ready to cook this. And we are going to use the ancient Japanese art of microwaving. So we're going to wrap that in plastic and pop it into our microwave oven. And we're going to cook this for about 3 or 4 minutes. And halfway through, we're going to want to take it out and give it a stir. So I nuked mine for 2 minutes. And when I pulled it out, it looked pretty scary. And it looked like it was one solid, unstirrable blob. But once I got in there with a wooden spoon, it did stir. And it reminded me of a very thick, sticky roux. So we're going to give that a mix. And then we'll rewrap that and put it back in the microwave for a couple minutes. Although we just got a new, big, giant, powerful microwave. And I was a little afraid of overcooking this. So I just gave it another minute and a half. And when I pulled it out and unwrapped it, it was pretty blurry. But that was just me not knowing how to focus. So there we go. And we'll give that one more stir. And I guess that's cooked. Like I said, I've never made this before, so I really didn't have any idea. But it seemed okay. And at that point, I'm going to transfer it onto the work surface to roll out. So I went ahead and dusted liberally with some more rice flour. And at that point, we'll go ahead and transfer our very sticky and still very hot mochi onto that surface and try to flatten this out. And by the way, I'm using rice flour here so it doesn't stick, but most of the recipes I saw use cornstarch or potato starch. So hopefully someone can tell me why that and not just more rice flour. There's got to be a reason. I'm sure this is wrong to use the rice flour, but I don't know why. And you can see we're also putting a generous amount on top so our hand doesn't stick. But anyway, we're going to press that flat and then switch to a rolling pin and try to roll it to about, 1/8 of an inch thick, something like that. And by the way, this is only really doable while this is still warm. So be careful, don't burn yourself. It's very hot when it comes out of the microwave, but you do want to work with this stuff while it's still pretty warm. But anyway, once we've rolled that out thin, I'm going to take my pizza cutter and slice this into 8 squares, or more accurately 8 pieces. And I'm pretty sure you know what's coming next. So we're going to take our now completely frozen solid ice cream balls and wrap it in these sheets of green tea mochi. And I did read you don't want a lot of excess mochi, like bunched up underneath. So once I wrapped it, it was clear I had too much. So I took my scissors, I snipped a little off, and kind of squeezed that bottom together. And then what I did is I took little pieces of plastic and wrapped them back up, gave it kind of a little twist, and then I'm just going to put that right back in our carton, seam side down. And once those have been completed, we'll simply freeze in the same container. So a pretty efficient system. And once those are all done, all we need to do is freeze those for a couple hours, and we're ready to serve. At this point, I was pretty optimistic. I mean, for a first attempt, they actually looked like mochi wrapped ice cream. So I unwrapped one, and especially when they first come out of the freezer, they have this kind of permafrost on the top. And even if you rub it off, it actually frosts back over. It's kind of cool. So I unwrapped a few, and it was time for the first official taste test, which I did bonbon style. So you can actually eat these by picking them up like this. So I bit in with high hopes, and I was actually very happy. The mochi came out nice and thin. It was just barely sweet, had a beautiful chewy texture, And that little bit of bitterness from the green tea really works well with the ice cream. And of course, if you don't want to get your hands dirty, you can use a spoon for these. That's generally how you get them at the restaurant. And then it was time for taste test number 2, because I wanted something a little prettier for the pictures. So I used this fancy little cocktail glass, which did look nice, except the curve of the spoon did not match the curve of the bottom of the glass. And this quickly became one of the biggest challenges of my culinary career. I just could not liberate that bite from the cup. But eventually, after a tremendous struggle, I did. Except then, I thought to myself, they should be able to see the exposed surface. So I tried to turn that around, and the piece got stuck again. It really was a nightmare. So a little heads up, if you serve these in cups, make sure your curves match. But anyway, me and my questionable spoon work aside, it really is a delicious frozen treat. In fact, I was so happy, I decided to break out the solar-powered fist-pumping cat to put next to this final shot. And I actually thought it was a Japanese solar-powered fist-pumping cat, but I've been informed those are actually Chinese characters, which I believe roughly translates to, wow, these Americans will literally buy anything. But regardless, I assume you're all pumping your fists in unison right now. As I say, I really hope you give this a try. And tell me what I did wrong and how I can improve this, alright? So head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.